we're somewhere about halfway through the allotted period for this retreat. And if you've been with this, as many of you have been, then there's a process that occurs as just the sense restraint and listening to Dhamma and doing these practices. There's a deepening, naturally all kinds of clogged stuff starts to release and come up. It's a great time. Some, you know, in a way, it's sometimes it's can be disturbing, but things have to release. So they're just stuff. The chitta is working things out somehow in the background, and our task is to steward that. You can't really, predict or determine or say it should be this way, it should be that way. Now do this, now do that. You just kind of what you're doing is just keep checking in and practicing sati, mindfulness, and keeping your intentions clear. That's what you can do. The chitta starts to respond to that kind of approach. And there's a backlog of stuff it needs to shake itself out of. How to steward, how to accommodate that, whereby, you don't close it down, but you don't adopt. You let this material move on. Mm-hmm. It's very much is a matter of most fundamental flood, which is forming a person out of the process. Mm-hmm. Forming a person out of a process. Wants to be a person who's finished the process, wants to be a person who's okay, wants to be a person who knows what's going on, wants to be a person who feels this will arrive at a good place. Yeah. To keep that person in the background, non-intrusive. Trust the puja and trust the Dhamma, your loving presence, stability, stabilizing what can be stabilized, staying open to material that you don't really understand, or sometimes you do understand, or that, I thought that was past. This requires a lot of equanimity, but also don't forget the daily recollection of mudita, appreciation that you're lessening your burdens rather than increasing them. You're lessening the delusion rather than increasing it. You're lessening the congestions rather than increasing it. And who knows, that's the right thing to do. It finishes when it's over when it's over. They say, you're over till the fat lady sings, you think quite a lot of scene needs to happen yet. But we continue. I'm kind of talk some questions here. It's interesting though, people are using different terminology. Often what's occurring is in a way there's a certain logic about retreat whereby, people who are 1,000 miles apart are hitting the same kind of material because that's the nature of the process. It's not located in space or time. You do these practices, and by day 3 or day 4, then these things happen. And particularly as we're talking about energetic shifts, there's a few questions about shifts of energy and the bodily effects of that. So I'll try to summarize. Can you say something about verbal versus non-verbal insights? I sometimes have the feeling of energetic shifts are maybe pre-verbal experiences that are touched into during meditation. Is it helpful to try to bring these to a verbal level, to kind of bring the shift or the insight to light? Or is just stay with the energetic feeling, let it work through, how to work with these deep patterns? Well, it seems to me that much of the process is non-verbal, and you have to be a Buddha to be able to get language around all this stuff, to be able to translate that into language. And a lot of the time he didn't even bother, because in a way, so what? The main thing is the shift happens, and it's how you steward it, how you stay present with that, it's the how you do rather than what happens. It's how you do it. And the shifts are real shifts are non-verbal, because they are shifts it's a transformation we're going through. It's a transformation of fundamental structure. It's not like an analysis. It's a transformation of energetic structure. When an energy system has been compressed or distorted by, then when you start to release it, then that's what happens. These are, and a good part of what you've become, our personality or our personhood is based upon, it's a foundation, the underlying energetic patterns. That's the foundation, right? And based upon that foundation, certain psychologies arise to use that platform. So the energetic foundation, it's not, it's a pressurized, right? Compensating for an imbalance. So there's an imbalance, energetic imbalance. Most, by and large, people in general their receptivity is much less than their intentionality. In other words, they're more active than receptive. So there's often an imbalance, because the receptive is not just passive, it's an actual energy that's able to stay steady and absorb what's going on and listen to it, moderate it. And particularly in pressurized situations, pressurized societies, that receptivity is considerably impaired, because it's not open receptivity. It's not, you have to get things done. And what you feel about it is sort of secondary, and how you get, that's all that is secondary. So receptivity is limited. So there's an imbalance, which fundamentally, so because of that imbalance, then certain, we have intention and action, that's part of our lives, but it should be the action and then the discharge, finish that, breathe out, how was that? Stay present, let the thing flow through, let your energy settle again. And I would estimate that if it takes you 5 seconds to get your energy up, it takes it about 25 seconds for it to release. The discharge is slow, because everything, depending on how violent your arousal has been. We're often into real push propulsion. So there's enormous voltage shift down the system. Now, if you're operating at a really moderate rate, then it wouldn't take so much time to discharge because you're not overcharging the system. In high pressure situations, high performance situations, where the sense of center is not is lost or not interested in. The main thing is get things done, get on with it, be good, and so forth. It's all about performance and presentation, or to a large extent. If that's unbalanced, receptivity is impaired, and you're going at a high pace, whereby the ability to discharge is limited. So you get a bunged up system that's kind of tilted or congested. Now that then becomes the foundation for the person. The person then is someone who's always concerned about doing the right thing and making sure everybody's okay and get on with the next thing, and that's the way they work, and they think that is their truth. They're not. That is their truth. They're not pretending. That's how they feel. That's how they're structured. And there are other things. People get structured into such an absence of real loving acceptance that there's a fake independence. In other words, we don't, a sense of belonging to a mutuality that will support and help and listen and be is that sense is very limited. You might have one friend, maybe. And the person is structured to be independent. It sounds like a good idea, but it's just not true. It's not true. Yeah. Everyone affects everyone else, right? Everyone affects each other. We affect each other. So that means if an independent person is still being affected by other people and affecting them. So that means we're not independent. We're maybe semi-autonomous, but we're always in some kind of responsive scenario where we're being affected by each other. And you want to get anything done, you've got to have other people help you do it. But then what the independence idea masks is a fundamental sense of worthlessness. If it's fake independence, it means fundamentally what you are in a relaxed, restful, open state is not good enough. So you've got to keep doing stuff to prove you're okay. You can't imagine the world could lift you up for free. You can't imagine being kind of loved just because of being human. You've got to do something. And so the person works on that. That's the way they're built. And they can get quite good at it. Quite impressive, quite good at it. But there's a sense of lack of worth is following them like a shadow. Like a shadow. So if you stop, shadow catches up in the inner critic. So then there's sort of some persons, if you're in extremely dysfunctional situations, you get by sort of living apologetically, excuse me for existing. You don't put me into it. So relationships fail either because there's too much of me in it, or there's not enough of me in it. So you've got to be able to put an adequate amount of me-ness into to form a we, right? It's not just being, well, whatever, it's whatever. That's not, that's an abasement. It's not a relationship. I'll just go along with what you do. No, you can say, well, yeah, I mean, that's the way it is for me. The way we can work it out. But again, when there's a kind of unloving or uncooperative scenarios that one arises within, then you get this becomes a personal trait. Where you just and people think, oh, it's great. She's so easy to get on with because she's never there. That's why. Not really. And the person and themselves who's doing that just feels, still feels hostility, which they only know how to compensate by constantly ducking. I mean, you could go through this and do various ways. I'm just trying to try out some examples, maybe a bit crude examples, but tendencies that perhaps we all have to a degree. And you see in some people, when you get to know them, you think, oh, wow, she just doesn't realize how wonderful she is, clearly. Still complaining about himself or criticizing himself or not being able to relax. And they're not, it's just the structure of the person. Now, so how does that happen? It's not like a person learns it all in their head. The energies are not allowed to expand into the fullness of presence and stability and openness because of various, you name it, family, social, cultural, racism, talking about that earlier, these kind of things whereby you're not allowed to expand into the fullness. It's not safe. You get accused or you feel, so therefore the person is built on an energetic model that's kind of very tight and there is distortions. Then you're not trying to do it. That's the energetic basis. And then all the various ways in which they start to orient around that. The person creates their world. In other words, once you're in that particular shape, you see things that conform to that particular, that follow that. That's it distorts your awareness. You see pressure everywhere, right? Because you're a pressure person. You're standing on a pressurized platform, so everything you see reminds you of pressure. So, pressurized person, you say, oh, it'd be nice to, okay, I'll get it done. No, it's just no pressure. Don't know what, pressurized person sees things in line with that. As they say, if you want something done, find someone who's busy, because the busy person is the one who's been established on being busy, because they take on a lot of responsibility, which another person wouldn't, And you see this in communities. Certainly, I live in community monasteries, and you see some people are just quite able to look at something that's going wrong and go, walk past. Just, that's that's difficult. So other people, oh my goodness, I've got to go and fix it. Yeah. And you witness this, and people who consider amount of power and attention going into getting things absolutely right, and other people just the personality structure is different. So that sits on an energetic basis, and the kind of rather dire truth of the matter is that that person will keep orienting and generating a world that supports them. Psychologies, and they'll notice the perceptions they pick up. Their mind sees, their mind picks up perceptions that conform to where they're coming from. Right? So you're constantly in your own feedback loop. This is instant karma. This is karma. And of course, there could be, people are very open, stable, beautiful people, and they see things in a different way. And that's their realm, their world. This is karma. This is the karmic cycle. You're particularly where you're coming from determines what you'll notice and determines how you respond to it. So you constantly recreate yourself in the same mold. And there's an energy that does that. Yeah? A sankhara, attention, intention. Now, what we're doing in transformation work is not saying, okay, we're going to meditate. So this is a pressurized meditation with pressurized people. Although that's what happens, of course. If you're a pressurized person, you tend to, right, got to meditate, got to get it right. Where's the book? Where's the manual? Let's get this going. Well, no, not really. I know what you mean, but that's the wrong tone. The tone here is make an effort with friendliness. Make yourself comfortable. Develop loving kindness, or be with, oh right, I've got to develop loving kindness. Now, I'm not a very kind person because I did this and that and the other, and I've got a nasty temper. So how do I develop loving kindness since I'm not a kind person? And you go, yeah, I see what you mean. You're doing it again. So everything becomes another obligation. So this is about like free yourself from obligation. Oh, how do I do that? So you really see the challenge of that. But if we work on the energetics of it, then you can bypass some of this psychological loop, because rather, so you just feel, okay, feel the pressure. How is that in your body? How does your body do with that? Can you feel your whole body? No. Can you feel the space around your body? Is it feel the space around your body and the ground beneath you? Oh, suddenly things start shifting. Things start shifting because the energy has finally found a place out that gets out of the person. The energy finds an avenue outside of the person pack, right? So the ground, the earth, the space, the openness. The person doesn't, but the body can. First, it feels very confused. What I'm supposed to do? Just wait. But the body is not a person. The body's not a person. Its energies know. Supported. Space around. There's no pressure. I don't have to anything. There's presence. And when that arrives, touching into that, all the stuff that's contained in the person pack starts to, the foundation is being challenged, you like, or the false, the false the imbalance is acknowledged, and we're tipping. We're coming to a new balance. And when you've been like that for 35 years, and suddenly things go like that, there's a lot of shaking going on, and stuff happens. And some of that stuff will be somatic. Suddenly everything, feel really tired or really energized, or something's happening in my shoulder, or my face is going weird. And you think, what on earth is going on? Well, what's going on is an energetic meltdown. But if we maintain, stable, open, stable presence, just even awareness and non-proliferation, don't make a person out of it. That's a jargon term. Don't make a person out of it. I mean, be the allowing of that. Can you allow that just for a little bit more? Can you allow that and feel the ground? Can you allow that and stay in your body? Can you allow that and feel the space? Can you allow that and not have an answer? And not have a reason? Can you allow that? Do the best you can. You know, if you can't, there'll be another time. Because once something has started recognizing, hey, this is out of kilter, and that's, you've got some intuitive sense of that, sooner or later, the chitter's going to say, hey, come on, you know, because once you've known you're out of balance and you felt it, the chitta searches for stability. Once it knows that's a fake stability, it never really can't go into it with the same ignorance. And ignorance is the pattern that keeps us tipping over and over again into our old pattern. This is real. This is true. This is what I am. This is what I must be. This is the way it is. You know, it keeps tipping us, the energy, over into the same old pattern with a few bits of decoration on it. You know, it disconnects. It doesn't want, it's the force, the flood that does not want truth. So truth, Buddha said it right, you know, truth, right, you have to move through suffering. And some of the suffering is just physical discomfort, but the major suffering is the sense of self and what that entails. And, you know, you say, but this kind of suffering leads to the end of it. This kind of stress, this kind of disorientation is leading to the end of it. You know? Maintain open presence. Steward it like you're looking after a child, an invalid, you know, a baby. Steward it with care. So, you know, and then you get into, why is my face going all weird and crunched up? And why am I crying? I don't know. Energy knows what it's doing. But these are the energies in the body are sort of twisting and moving around as you go through that. I don't know why it's doing it, but I know it does. And it's not, you know, if I knew why, it still wouldn't do you any good, because it's not why, it's what you do about it. And essentially you just said it, right? But keep connecting. Don't go into these distorted patterns, because when you go into that, you put more energy in to a place that's actually trying to release energy. So just step back. Find a place you can step back. And this is so I'm suggesting the entirety of the body means you're not dissociated, not spaced out. You're definitely there, but instead of being up here in this area that's going strange, that's a percentage, but there's also a lot of some more grounded stuff. And if there isn't any grounded stuff, then you do need to move and change. You shouldn't be flopping around ungrounded. You've got to have some sort of connection, however simple it is. Walking, standing, sitting, you know, that's you know, that's solid. That's, you know, or even companionship. So you don't just become this kind of energetic shift. You're able to be aware of it. Even so, again, you can even talk to it. When I talk to it, I mean saying, "How is this? How is this? And what does it feel like? Is it like liquid, like fire? What's the emotional tone with it?" Sometimes there's the emotional tone of grief, or tiredness, fatigue, or anger, you know. And just keep not making, these are just, don't make a person out of them. These are all energies. The energies, as it twists and distorts, moves around, it can bring up kinds of emotional stuff. And you might very well have a non-verbal, verbal, oh, that's that. That reminds me of something that happened 10 years ago. That, then you get, maybe you do get a verbal hint. Some of it you don't. Some of it you just get a vague sense, oh, this is to do with loss or fear or anxiety or not being allowed. You know, you get an emotional coloring of that, tonalities. Mm-hmm. Mm. The energy knows what it's doing, but do make sure energy has some connection to a healthy resource, such as the ground, literally the earth beneath you, space around you, the Buddha, and if possible, a spiritual friend. You can say, you can just be there, offering presence. Talk so that someone can listen, even being able to be listened to. That has a healthy effect. It tends to, once you get help to, get out of being the independent person, which is pretty independent person is not good news. So I've tried to sort of collect a few of these under that heading, because naturally this stuff is rather unusual. And if it does seem too intense, just start thinking. That will close everything down. Read a book. It really takes you to another level. You see, you go, because now you're in a very deeply embodied level. But so if it's too difficult, then start read a book or go into the more abstract level, take you out of it. So talking helps. To moderate pressure. Body work's helpful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So some other points. Question are the distinction between flood and outflow. In Pali language, these are ogha is flood and outflow is āsava. And I think there's synonyms to describing a particular experience. So āsava is to do with kind of a flow, that's infection. So it's a slightly corrupted, poisoned tonality to it. Ogha is the rushing quality. And I think the Buddha's, they didn't come with labels on them. The Buddha's just putting some labels on them. All language is metaphorical. Direct experience is not linguistic. Direct experience has no words to it. So all language is metaphor. And so it's just using kind of a couple of metaphors to describe the same experience. That's the way I see it. These are, once again, avijja, ignorance, sensuality, karma, becoming, which means continuing identity, the movement towards an identity, having a fixed identity that persists through time. This flood. And sometimes another one is added to that called ditti, opinions and views. So generally, the way this manifests is, that when this mind, these kind of floods or āsava flow up, you get things are rolling on, and then perceptions, intent, feelings, and stuff like that, and the mind's chitta's getting involved in it. This is avijja, and then becoming a person. Oh, I am this. I'm feeling this, or this is happening to me. And this is bhava, and I want to be either I want to have this continue to happen to me. This is good, or I don't want to have this happen to me. So the current can flow either way, but it's all about me. Life is about me and how I'm going to be. And karma is the flood into the sense realm. We seem to believe we belong here in this presentation that consciousness makes. Like, the theatre. When you land in the theatre and you think you are Hamlet or Lady Macbeth or whatever, because that, we're in the theatre of the senses. So we assume we are a sentient being, we are a sense creature. Ditti, views, we adopt views about things, dogmas, views, rights, wrongs. And you may think, well, this is all natural, isn't it? It is natural. This is all conditioned. In that, you never really finally become anything. You're always in the process of about to be. You're ongoing. So you take a photograph any moment in your life. You have been something, and you're about to be something next, right? And you can see that just as soon as any moment you're about to do something else. You ring the bell, and you're about to go to the next thing. Isn't that normal? So if you're about to, what are you? You're about to be something. What are you now? What you are now is an about to be. Wishing to be, or dreading being, and having been. So you're having been, and you're about to be. What are you now? But because this is so continual, the question seems foolish. I am, I am some characteristic. I'm a man. That's what I am, I'm a man. Well, what about the pain? Is that a man pain? Or is it a female pain? What about the joy? Is that male? All kinds of characteristics don't fit into that model. So what our chitta, our experience is never fully comprehended or fathomed by these identities that are never even fixed anyway. They get fixed through fixation. We become a fixed identity because we work at it. Get things nailed down as best we can. get the, whatever it is, the ownership, the job, the relationship nailed down. That's what I am. But it starts to crack up and we feel incredibly distraught because we weren't able to nail things down as mine and me. This is why essentially we're not trying to wipe people out, we're just trying to stop suffering. And these floods are very convincing, seem very natural, everybody's following, but they lead to suffering and stress because they're actually all based upon an imbalance of the chitta. One of the ways in which we nail ourselves down, nail things down, is through views. I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Catholic, I believe in this, I think this is wrong, this is right, this kind of thing. You get pretty fixated on that. And there isn't a view that comprehends life, apart from it comes and goes. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, some of it's good, some of it's bad. Is it right, wrong? Well, some of it's right, some of it's wrong, some of it's, you know, is it from God? Well, maybe, but which one? Is there no God? Well, how did we get here? You know, what can you affirm ultimately and what can you dismiss ultimately? Eventually just end with a big, don't know. But I do know that forming a fixed view, you're going to find yourself in conflict and feeling, and how much of that is the need to have a fixed view. We know that clinging to views generates suffering and stress. Find out for yourself. These are the floods and the āsava, and you know, maintain stable open presence. And even that, don't make a view out of it. It's a direct place where the floods wash over and the place where, you know, they can be terminated. So yeah, a couple of other topics. One, aging and death, to prepare for that. It's good to prepare for it every day since we are aging and terminal. It's just who knows when the final step will occur. So you may, when you're at 70 or 80, you might think, yeah, this is not just a rehearsal, this is the real business. So you just keep it in mind and your chitta will tell you how to prepare. So don't bother with that. Gather yourself into the beauty, gather yourself into the harvest, gather yourself into the truth. Keep working on that. You leave the world behind. It doesn't get finished. It doesn't get finished. You have to make peace with that, and just feel you've done you haven't, you showed up in your life. You showed up. You know, you met things. You presented things. You brought forth things. Of course, you wish it could have been more. Of course, but you showed up and you did things, and the world is ongoing and it leaves you behind. So, you know, there's a certain leave taking to prepare for, and it's sad, but it's also contented. She showed up. Someone asking, response to a question asking, taking thought seriously, you posited the answer to the question, what is bothering me? So say one is thinking a lot, and I'm saying, well, why don't you ask the question, what's really bothering me? Which might lead to the realization that maybe it doesn't matter that much. About that. It all matters. It's just you don't find that there's the answer in the thought. So you try to investigate the emotion and find out what is occurring and meditate around that. The questioner says, well, what if it does matter? You know, I'm thinking of something, it really does matter to me. For example, such as creating immediate harm or cruelty to another being, or something that violates one's own values. For example, when a group or an organization one belongs to engages in harmful or unethical choices, when and how to speak up, and when to refrain from speech and actions. Well, you know, with ethical orientation, it's important to maintain your ethical orientation, your sense of conscience and concern, compassion and goodwill. That's definitely necessary. But action is always, you have to negotiate it, mediate it, because, you know, the details you've got to look at each situation. Where's the opening? Now, for a start, you don't really belong to an organization. I mean, in some ways, I belong to this country, and many things about the way this country's run, I find I don't agree with. It irritates me. I feel deeply disappointed by it. It could be worse, but it could be better than this, surely. But here I am. I suppose I'm enrolled in it since I got a passport and I've got citizenship. What do we do about it? Well, in one way, you know, my enlisting in this was not a conscious decision. I just happened to get born here. They didn't ask me whether I wanted to belong to it or not. I just got landed here, and so I don't really finally belong to this place or this government or this setup. Yeah. And what do I belong to? I belong to Dhamma, you know, and to being with people who I feel affinities with, because that's where it happens. The rest of it, I feel like a misfit. But within that situation, one certainly finds the openings to address ethical concern. And obviously, as a teacher, I'm doing that a lot of the time, expressing ethical concern. And probably a certain percentage of people listen to it, and a large percentage don't. Doesn't stop me speaking up, but it also doesn't. I don't get frustrated because, you know, or annoyed by it. You know, you do your bit, and you speak your bit, and you know, the ones who listen to you are the ones you belong to, and that's how it works. Always try to address the good in others. Sometimes it's a little difficult to see at first in some situations, but you know, the non-harm they're doing, you try to look at that, so you're not looking through the eyes of ill will. You're looking through the eyes of compassion. Right? people who are acting in ways that for their own harm and the harm of others. That's the Buddhist approach on that. The tonality of your voice is up to you, but you know, depending on the other people can hear or listen to it. And so certainly, you know, one could say, well, I didn't make it change anything, but I was able to speak my truth. I feel I feel clear. I said what I felt I wanted to say, and maybe somebody heard a bit, maybe a few people picked it up, maybe there's a little bit of difference. Sometimes I think in this life you get to push human development along 1 millimeter, you know, or 2, just pushing it along a little bit. But then, you know, if 1 million of us push it along in various ways, and there are, then you get development. But there's always this is always this karma, and there's a lot of ignorance and becoming and craving and greed and confusion and loss of imbalance in the world and in organizations. They often accumulate power, and they are run by people who are able to, who like power, or you know. So these are tricky situations to handle. One must maintain one's stability and openness and integrity and maintain equanimity. That would be my advice. Well, yeah, well, there's a lot on self and others, you know, apologizing, regrets, problems with family members. It's, you know, it's a, family is a particularly poignant experience because in some ways we are really, really bonded, you know, same genes, same flesh, same upbringing. In other respects, we can be completely different jittas, very little karmic overlap. Yeah, so you can find, you know, your sister or your cousin or your aunt, you just no way in. Um, and that's dukkha. And by and large, you present yourself as best you can and maintain goodwill, openness, stability, and people pick up what they'll pick up. And sometimes it's a slow process. And sometimes you realize this person, although, you know, technically they're related to me, in some ways, they're not. We all have to live our own life and our own death. There's no family then. But there's this citta, karma, that's what we belong to. The rest we try to meet with compassion and clarity and integrity. Let's stop for now. Thank you. Take a few minutes, if you will, to freshen up, and then we'll gather together for some quiet practice.